Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy, Seth, and Mike. We're back again. If you notice, my glasses are not on. This is a
did notice that.
This is a no glasses podcast day. I actually do wear contacts, so when I'm out and about, I'll typically wear contacts. However, since I'm not wearing my glasses, it's also an indication that this is a pre-recorded podcast. I've already been up for hours and hours, so this is not an early morning podcast. We were pre-recording this one. And in our last pre-recorded episode, we were discussing what number of the episode it is and which day of the week it was. I believe this is a Thursday because it's an even number.
I wanted Seth to pick that out. I was going to ask, were you supposed to say it? I don't know.
Hey, man, I struggled so bad in the first one. Like, I know I got this one all right. It's the one after.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Excellent. So
and these are our last pre-recorded too, and then we're gonna go back live.
Yeah, so this is our last pre-recorded one, but we'll be back live shortly. People are traveling and doing vacations and things during the summer, so we decided to pre-record a couple of them so we can keep with the schedule. We wanted to kind of keep getting content out, and hopefully you enjoy the content. And we'll see how, depending on how vacations go for everyone, you may get a mixed bag of who's online,
Yeah, right.
monitoring the chat and things as well. Anyways, awesome. Well, Tommy found an interesting article. Tommy, wanted to tell us what you found and where you found it on?
So this is actually really cool. And from the discussions we've had with data marts and data flows, where it's going to play, we've talked about the roadmap and all the things data flows are going to do. So this is from whatthefact.bi. First off, great website already, just by the name.
The name is great.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything from that. But they basically took the idea of incremental refresh, data flows, and data marts to be able to take an API that would only load you 30 days. The activity log, right?
The REST API.
The REST API only loads 30 days.
Yep.
Load it into a data mart that loads into a data flow, use incremental refresh on the data flow. So now they can get historical data. So that, because in a sense, the data flow doesn't know that there's only 30 days. So that idea, they're actually to get a lot more data from that. Obviously, there's probably more potential use cases for that, but just the idea that you could do something like that with something that, in a sense, is limited, I think is phenomenal. And I think Microsoft is also going that direction too, where we're seeing the more implications and the more actions of data flows based on the roadmap, where it's going to be actions are going to be part of it. We're going to load data flows into other systems rather than it just being a consumption.
This is a pretty interesting jump around here too, because you're kind of using Power Query twice. You're using Power Query once to just load all of the data or as much of the data as you can into the data mart, which is acting like a SQL server. And then he goes in the article, they describe using the data flow, connect to the SQL server, which is the data mart. And then the data flow is then able to incrementally refresh the data based on like an updated date. So then, you can get the last 5 days of data and store it for 4 years. And so then the data flow will continually stack up data and information. Right. So really good solution there. And this is the kind of stuff that I think is very useful for the business. And as I'm looking at this going, thinking through this, like this is kind of what I see happening here, right? We've taken a lot of these, and in our last episode, we talked a lot about like where does IT and where does the the BI set. This is another feature set that's like, wow, we're really moving a lot of technical capability into the hands of the business now. We can just follow this article, boom, couple clicks, couple buttons. It's all a GUI user interface that's easy to work with, and boom, now we've got this process that doesn't require any more, IT-based backend, and it's all contained in the same price of the same service, Power BI Premium. Very cool. Neat article. We'll make sure we link it in the description below. And with that, I think we're good to go. Let's talk about our topic today. So this is a feature that is inside Power BI Desktop that I think you enable, but actually you utilize this inside the PowerBI.com service. So the feature is personalizing visuals in Power BI. So in Desktop, I believe you author a visual the way you want it to be, a bar chart, whatever that is. And then you enable the ability of that visual to be customized for end users. It's a setting on the report itself. So when an end user looks at a report, they could pick other kinds of visuals there. So that's kind of the feature. What are your thoughts, Tommy, Seth? Let's start with, I guess we should kick it off with Tommy here. What are your thoughts on this Personalize the Visual? Are you using it today?
This is a fun one because this is, to me, more the idea is phenomenal, but the actual practice of it is wanting. And I'll explain myself. So the feature itself, I think the idea is great, right? Where
Hmm?
you can actually allow in a visual like, okay, this is looking based on the sales team. Well, I really need to see this based on the product. Well, that would be great. Oh, let me just click on that little feature, just change it quickly. So the idea of that being able to do that, or I mean, it's not just limited. It's not really that even limited. You can literally change a bar chart that just shows product by sales and make that a complete table.
Hmm.
Like it's almost like the authoring feature. So, but the problem is, I think it's either it's not widely adopted, right? And I think that's where I'm seeing the stoppage point. I think the idea of it's phenomenal, but like I said, I think it's almost too complex right now.
So I like the idea of this one. I feel like it's a good idea if I have more control about what that visual would be.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe here's where I'll go with some of this. From my perspective, I would like it to be okay. Thank you. Here's your bar chart. I mean, a lot of times we get requests and reports where, hey, I need this table. I'm not really loving that, right? I'd rather maybe present to you a bar chart in a way that interactively looks good on the page, and then allow users to switch it to maybe like a table, and so give you the ability. I do a lot. I used to do a lot with buttons where I would like, okay, do you want the table view or do you want the bar chart view? And then the button would then hide and show a different visual based on what's information is there. So I think that is a solid use case. I've done it before. People like that feature set, but I don't think you have the ability to, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you have the ability of being able to say, okay, you can pick from this 3 types
No.
of visuals.
Right.
You can switch it. It's basically you just and turn it on and let people switch or not. I can't let you choose the visuals that you want to switch to.
Right. It's almost the problem of too many options.
Yes, agreed. I think
They
you would
they lit
overwhelm the end
yeah,
user at that point.
yeah. Because you can
Have
choose.
either of you guys heard of or talked to business users that are like super keyed in on this?
No.
No, I don't think no one.
Are you implementing it anywhere?
I've tried it a couple times.
Mhm.
I don't think anyone knows it exists or understands why, like how to use it. It's one of these like education things, like drill through, right? It's
Yeah.
there, but unless you like explicitly teach people that this thing is available to you, and then you can turn it on and off by individual visuals. So like, how do you indicate across 5 visuals on the page which ones are
Yeah,
you can
Right.
tweak and which ones you
and
can't? Does that make
that's
sense?
I've
You
yeah. I
know?
mean, I've never. I think I've enabled it, but I don't know of any business user that's
No.
actually using it.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the challenge with this feature is we've talked ad nauseum about how hard pressed you are to even teach drill through,
Yeah.
Right.
right? Let
100%.
alone like now all of a sudden you add in this feature that allows them to completely change the visual.
Yeah.
You're assuming that they know what the model is underneath, which fields they can use, like what they would want to see.
Hmm.
You know, I think to me, I'll have to pay it. I'll have to jump into the chat to see if any of our users during this episode have seen it or used it, and what the use cases are. But
Hmm.
I would see potential use in like heavy analysts, right? Like they
Yeah.
want
Yep.
to pick and choose different visuals depending, but you're still going to be bound by the measures and everything developed in the model. So
Exactly.
are you developing a model with the intent to
Yeah.
have people build their own visuals? Do you know what I'm saying? Like the challenge,
Well,
I haven't
yeah.
thought through that scenario enough to be like, are we trying to create the be all end all report, right?
Hmm.
So that people can just utilize an interface to pick whatever kind of visuals and columns and measures that they want to use.
Well,
I don't
here,
know.
yeah. Well, here's the crazy thing: the personalized visuals is the only default feature in Power BI that utilizes perspectives.
Yeah.
So
Or
I
can
was
utilize perspectives.
we were going to get there on the perspectives
Yeah,
things because I have a lot of issues around the idea of perspectives in general.
but yeah, but I'm saying this is the only feature that in Power BI itself, if you have a perspective, this is where it actually is used. So you can say
Correct.
like, yeah, which is kind of crazy in itself, right?
Yes.
That, but yeah, I agree. There's a whole other conversation on on perspectives, but you can create a model and create a perspective solely for personalized visuals. But I think, Seth, to your point, like we've done training. I've done training with both other Power BI developers. We've done office power hours on this feature. We've sent Slack messages and team messages, or I've sent the template of here's how you
Mm.
explain the feature.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of tracking on it, but I've heard no one has said this is a great feature or anyone really using it, because I think, to Seth's point, like if we're still not struggling, but we know that the least path resistant or the most path is the drill through feature.
Yes.
And now you're going to open up, in a sense, Pandora's box.
Mhm.
So it's not for the business user, obviously. I think in
But
the first 5 minutes of the podcast, we've
right,
decided that yeah, it's not really useful, I guess. But I guess the question that all of a sudden kind of launches into my head is, a few episodes ago, I was kind of railing into you for who would be using data marts, right? Like
I don't remember that. So,
because there's SQL access now, right? Like I can
yeah,
write queries against a data source, and you're enabling end users of some sort, let's just say at least analyst level, right, where
Mhm.
there's some level of technical know-how there. um, does this feature actually coincide or go along a useful scenario where if I'm saying data marts are valuable because somebody can access raw data or the data that we are pulling into a model, does it make sense that we would potentially build out what I just kind of poo-pooed, which is more of a model that is used for exploration,
right.
right? Where you
Yes.
have a lot of different measures, you have a lot of aggregated information, and you don't need to go build 10 pages of reports that somebody needs to know, like what aggregations are on which page. They could just have one visual where they get to, like, would you build just one visual on a page and then say, hey, have at it? You know what I'm saying? No, because but to me, like that kind of makes sense, right? Like if it's that's the visual on the page and that's all you get, with a lot of explanation around like how you would go about building the different visuals that you would want to see based on your facts and dimensions that you completely build out on the back end.
I mean, it is. I mean, customizing the visual is like a huge amount of information that you're throwing at the end user, right?
Yeah.
You get the
Mhm.
entire model when you're accessing
Yeah.
it. Like if you're building a bar chart, like it's not like, hey, here's a bar chart, switch these couple things around. It's like literally the entirety of the bar chart,
Mhm.
and any other, like, again, this is where I think my gripe is. If I'm the report author, does it really make sense to turn a bar chart into a slicer? Does it really make sense to turn a bar chart into like a power app? I mean, the options are there. Like it's in the
Right.
list.
You're
Like,
saying let you pick and choose as
yeah.
the person who's creating it.
Yeah, as I'm trying to
Yeah.
cater this authoring experience to the end user,
Because
like
you can't, like it's you still have you're still creating the object for them, right? Like they can't
correct.
um modify every that's really weird, right?
I mean,
Like
it's
if
just
I can
weird.
select
Yeah.
slicer, right?
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
Pick
turn
your slicer,
turn this visual into a slicer, and then
pick
you
your
pick.
visual.
Yeah. Basically it's basically to me what it feels like is it's that space on the page, whatever that space is, whatever length, width, height of that visual, you could change it to
Yeah.
anything you wanted. And then as
Right.
you kind of click around and figure out, okay, which one of these things are the ones that work, you now have this ability to kind of change it to anything you want, which again, right, maybe defeats the purpose of the report. Like you're really like you're giving so much ability to customize the look of that report or change things so far that this report could be saying anything at this point. Like it could be,
But and that's where I'm saying like
yeah.
it's not it in my mind. I went from the leap of the reports that we tend to create for end users that have a purpose behind them to convey or determine certain levels of information.
Hmm.
Like this to me is squarely in the you know exploration and analysis
Yes.
perspective,
Yeah.
and not and the only use case maybe on the front end is where somebody's like, I don't like this pie chart, or I don't like a bar chart, I want to see a pie chart,
Oh,
right?
totally. Yeah, exactly right.
um
And it even
I don't know.
does, so it'll even go as far as, and I'm actually playing with the feature right now to make sure I talk about this stuff right. Um, I am making a custom, I have a report that has it turned on. I'm changing the bar chart to a table, and it allows you to make a personalized bookmark. And then when you reset the page, the
Yeah.
visual even reshapes itself back to the original visual.
Right.
And so now you can go to the bookmark.
Original or the one that you saved?
The
No,
original.
if you use the
The
bookmark,
original.
it turns it changes the visual type. So you can
Yeah.
can take the visual and switch it to what you want to switch it to with the bookmark, and then you can go back to the default of the
Right.
page, and it will then revert to the original visual on the page. I mean, that's a pretty cool feature. Like, at least that way you have like the oops, I screwed something up button, right? And I can go back to reset to default kind of thing. And I think that's a really important, whatever you're going to do here, you're going to need something like that, right? You're going to need the
Right.
reset to default, because you're going to get into a place where who knows what you're going to get out of it at that point.
So we're real quick, Seth, the point that you made about what's the difference between this and data mart for the end user, business user. The big difference for me is this is the end point, right? This is a purely consumption point of view where
Yes.
I can't share that new personalized visual with anyone. It's really just for that single user to do. I like I said, I think the biggest thing that we're talking about here is there's way too many options for the end user. And regardless of if they're competent in Power BI or not, I still think this is a feature that should live with the like a consumer. I don't the idea of it. Let me put it that way. The idea of this should live with the end user. I don't think this is a developer feature. If it, I mean, at that point, then you might as well give them the ability with the live connection to a data set rather than using
Sure.
this convoluted avenue. But again, I think what we're all kind of talking about here is we want to limit what options they can choose. Because if you have a dim table, the dim table might have 4 fields that are irrelevant, but really they just want to see product category, product subcategory. They don't care about the other 4. Maybe you do that in perspective, or maybe the user knows, but you're relying on the user to know all the models, features, and functions, and what's important, what to filter by, or what to group by. That that really makes itself play out, or it makes this idea or the actual practice of it not practical.
I would argue in here, like, this is where very good documentation of your model must be in place at this point. Like, if you're going to turn on this feature, I would clearly argue, like, you need to have all of your tables
Yeah.
clearly described as what they're doing in the columns, clearly describe what's going on. And I think you really want to stick with a very close to a star schema, because you are able to pick other data fields within the model. Potentially, I guess at some level you could think this could be potentially a security risk to some degree, right? If you're allowing people to switch the visuals out and change the different fields that are in those visuals, they could be getting at fields that they shouldn't be seeing, or that the report author
Sure.
didn't expect them to see initially. So even though the role of security is being applied, I mean, there are, cases where you don't want to have people to download that visual. So if you don't want people downloading the visual, then probably you don't want them changing the columns that are in that visual to maybe see something at a lower grain of detail, because you're expecting them to export that visual in its current state, not adding additional grain. I'm thinking like the salesman report, right?
Yeah.
You can have sales by department, which is kind of non-specific to persons, and then you can add the person column to a table, and now you can see each person's sales by department.
Right.
And then at that
It-
level, you could export that thing.
I think you
it
create a
certainly
perspective
does.
default. Yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
well, maybe that's why perspectives were implemented here, right? Because it does open up quite a large, like, a lot of control for an end user to see a lot of
Yes.
the model.
Yes.
And maybe that's why in the initial or in the implementation of it, they were like, that's probably not a good idea. like,
Well,
where, how can we limit that? Oh, there's this thing called perspectives.
Yeah. Well, then,
Maybe we
yeah.
enable it here.
but then how do you do it though? Like, so how do you make perspectives? You can't
I
make
guess-
perspectives in desktop, and this is my
you get a
gripe.
tablet. Yeah.
Before we
Well,
go into that,
yeah,
though,
yeah,
yeah.
I
Okay.
do
I wanna
want
revisit
to
that.
point out the one good thing here, though, because Tommy, you were saying, like, I think my initial analysis is like, hey, like, I see this more use case in the analyst perspective, but for an end user, right? You can't say that you haven't had the conversation 100 times over, where somebody comes up and says, well, my customer wants to see this instead of that, or I want to see this instead of that. And it could be a visual, it could be whatever
Yeah.
the case may be on the report. And it's like, well, I'm glad you feel that way, but this one report services all our customers, or it services everybody. So you can't have your own personal thing. This solves that,
It does.
right?
It really
Like
Yes.
does.
this little tweak of, well, I don't like the bar chart
You don't
is
need a
the
bar chart.
exact scenario where sometimes it's
Correct.
like, okay, Larry, then go save it as a visual and you can
Mhm.
have your pie chart and you can save it. And here's how you do that.
Anytime
And
you want to save it.
that's your own special report bookmark right on the page, and you can overwrite it and you don't even have to see my bar chart anymore, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That solves this problem,
totally
Right.
does.
right? So so I I don't want to poo-poo at all, because that is a very painful conversation sometimes where it's just like, well, you can't. Like, I'm sorry, no, you can't. What do you mean I can't?
Yeah.
I want it that way. Like,
Yeah.
okay, well,
Yeah.
now you can have it that way.
And no, and I think that's a huge thing. But real quick, I think the security issue here is a little irrelevant to me because of the data hub. Because technically, you can view the entire model outside of
Not
perspective.
necessarily. If you publish things through apps, you don't have to have access
Oh,
to Data Hub.
this is true. Okay.
So like,
Yeah.
I mean,
This is, yeah.
I understand your point. Like, if you're if you're a user in the workspace and you're doing content creation,
the-
sharing the workspace, yes, correct. You go to Data Hub, you can even click those columns and see what's in the columns, no problem.
Interesting. Yeah.
But if you're doing like deployment pipelines, or if you're publishing things as an
Right.
app and you're saying don't download and don't have build permissions on the data
Make sure
sets,
the export's not the underlying data. Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
right.
But
So-
like, and I get the security thing, because perspectives aren't even going to solve that problem. But
Right.
ultimately, like, you're
True.
not going to enable this on a model where that's a big deal, right? You can't.
Right. Yeah.
Because it, like,
Well, you
there
say
are
that
a
because you
lot
know
of
you
there-
say that because
well,
you
there
know it.
are-
I'm saying that's looks good to
Well,
state
there
this.
are a lot of models out there where like there are some measures that would transcend RLS, right? Like, depending
Yes.
on how your model is set up,
True.
you may have them for a particular reason, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, it does give the keys to the castle to people,
Yeah.
which you have to be cognizant of.
Yeah. I do want to emphasize your point though with the pie. Like there is a role for this, and there is a
Funny how I keep going back to the pie chart.
Like a pie on the
when you
mind.
create a calculated column pie chart. Yes. The whole
Calculated column pie chart.
My entire pie chart is made out of calculated columns. But no, but I know that point you said right there is, I don't want to say the only, but I would say one of probably the most significant purpose of the personalized visuals. Because outside of that, what was our thing? Like, okay, well, either somewhat, users, some users go, the report's not relevant because it doesn't have that little tweak for me.
Yep.
Therefore, nothing
Yeah.
makes sense. But that they can do that themselves, or you can help them. But again, yeah,
I feel like that's more where I would, if I were working with this with new users or users that are introducing this feature to it, I think I could show them this, but I'm not sure if I would be very confident after doing a demo of this one feature that they would be like, oh yeah, we know exactly
Sure.
what to do now. And like from now on, they're covered. I think it would be more of along these lines of, hey, I'm going to review this report with you. And they're like, oh, it doesn't quite work right. Well, I was like, well, let me show you how you can tweak, we had a table here, but you wanted a pie chart? Sure, no problem. Let me show you how to do that in your report. So this is going to be for you. And I think this is a feature that I would dovetail with, Tommy, what you do a lot of teaching around in your company, like personalized bookmarks. They're a win.
Mhm.
Like, so I think first I would have clear knowledge of, make sure people understand what personalized bookmarks are and how to make them.
Right.
And then
1000%.
right behind that, then you can say, oh, by the way, here, now that we've understand the personalized bookmarking area, now we can add to that. Here's the ability for us to be able to then customize individual visuals. And all you really have on this page now is just a bunch of grid, square,
Right.
visual area. And so then you can just easily adjust things whatever you want.
Yeah. And what the training that we've done, and I think where it plays a little better rather than changing everything, because you could, like I said, the power of this, you can literally take product and sales and literally get members and join, completely change the context.
Mhm.
The training that we always do, both from, again, like other developers and consumers, is just changing, like, hey, we have a map of states. Well, let's say you wanted to see this as a table. Just click on the table button and you're good.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily go into like all the features are there, but the training point of view, we try to keep it as simple as possible, where it's just like change this to a table
Mhm.
and you're done.
I mean, so personalized bookmark or personalized visuals came out well before another feature. So so this could be useful from the standpoint that if you had many similar measures, right? Like you
Mm.
were, or dimensions, like you were
I know where
looking
you're
at
going.
things over time, or there were variations in the um, way you wanted to analyze something, but they were different calculations.
Can I throw it?
Like this would be a very easy way to swap
Yes.
those out on
Yeah.
a visual
Let me and
for people to not have to have multiple visuals on the same page looking at a 3-month duration, 6-month, year to,
yeah,
like
yeah.
things like that.
I'm thinking like, so that's a good example. I'm thinking another example here. Like, let's say you have a role playing dimension of like a date calendar, right? And so
Sure.
one team says, I recognize sales as of the day the
There you
invoice
go.
was
Yeah.
sent, and a different team may say, I recognize sales the day the money came in the door, right?
Yeah.
There's always like
Mhm.
there's a record of invoice date and receive date or something, whatever that may be. But like you
Sure.
can actually now give that team, okay, which way do you need to see it? And you can help them build the personalized bookmark. If you made two measures, one that used the invoice date and one measure that calculates sum of sales by receive date, now you can have one visual, and then the user can then switch that. And Tommy, this is a lot of like maybe like as a business user team, like in your company, you described this a while ago in the podcast, where we are looking at the same information, but we're just slightly different. Like my anchor of my date time is on a different column than someone else
Mhm.
is. And so this would then let you serve both of those needs at the same time, one visual,
Yeah.
and then for each customer group.
Yeah. Well, I think I know where Seth is going with this. Where I'll let you, because
Tee it up for you.
yeah, so I am yeah, I'll I'm very much in the opinion, I'm realizing this more on Power BI, but also from our conversations on like Power BI an application. If it's not shown, it practically doesn't exist.
Yes.
And the feature that has come out recently, to what Seth is talking about, is field parameters,
Oh, yeah.
where
Okay.
which technically can solve a lot of this. The only thing it doesn't really do is change the visual. Fine. But the fact that you can
That's
change
true.
both but
Well,
fine.
this use case that we're just discussing is not
Yeah,
necessarily to change the visual,
Sure.
right?
right.
Exactly.
This would be a method by which we can select different dimensions or measures, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So in this context, field parameters.
Right. And so with
Solves
field
that
parameters,
problem. Yeah.
does it kind of almost does field parameter I guess the real question is, does field parameters make personalized visuals irrelevant?
Ooh.
I th-
No, I would say no.
I don't think irrelevant. I think the use case that I brought up right here, would I choose a field parameter over too much, like a personalized visual? Yeah,
I think I would
I
too.
think absolutely I would.
Yeah.
Right? Like I want to provide a guided experience where, if those are the um, selections that multiple groups need to make, rather than having to create 15 bookmarks and different visuals on the page, right? Field parameters allows me to give a guided experience that meets the needs of multiple teams or multiple people,
Hmm.
but still is refined to the way I want to present that information, because it makes the most sense that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So in this way, yeah, I absolutely think it does.
I would say, and Tommy, you said, does it make it obsolete? I would say no, it doesn't make it obsolete, but I can see like if we had the Venn diagram, when field parameters showed up, there's a good portion of that Venn diagram that's now overlapping between the two features. Like you could solve it two ways now, and now we have and thus it makes good for a good podcast episode, because now we can debate: do you use field parameters or do you do customized visuals? Like, what are the pros and cons of each?
I don't
So
think it's much of a debate, but
that's true, maybe true, but
I think the product team, whoever was working on personalized visuals, when they saw field parameters come out, went crap.
well, I think field parameters is solving uniquely a different problem, and, and maybe it's in a way the field parameters are something that is solving a different problem in a more visible to the end user way. Because even if you had personalized visuals, you still can't, like, yes, you could do it. All the building you would need is there, but again, it's to my point earlier, right? I can't pick. Let me say it this way: the perspectives, I can't make perspectives in desktop today. You have to be using another tool to do that. So that, to me, that's one like huge barrier to entry to when we're talking about these visuals now, because now I can't pick the handful of fields that you need. I mean, doggone it. If we're able to do this, at least let me make the perspective in real time in desktop and just say, here's the model, pick the things that the user's allowed to use on the X or Y axis, make this a thing, make it part of the settings. It should just be there. I don't know why we had to make this so complicated.
Yeah, that left-hand sidebar of Power BI with the three icons is lonely. It has not changed in 3 years.
Add
You
a
have a lot of options there.
add
Yeah.
perspectives, add something else over there. Yeah, exactly
But
right.
well, I think the everything's set up pretty well for field parameters to make the personalized visuals obsolete, right? Our entire beginning of the conversation was there's too many options. It's hard to find.
Hmm.
Like I can't control it. Well, with field parameters, you can do just that.
Yeah,
And you can create multiple field parameters. So if I want a set of measures for like the different types of way we do sales, I can
sure.
do that.
Yeah.
And I can have that in the place that I want to as the developer. If you want like the types of categories, you can create the whole shebang,
Hmm.
or you can create it in context of that particular page. And I think the biggest thing that we've talked about, just like now with new users, I always create a button for a drill through. And again, super easy with Tabular Editor, script on Power BI Tips GitHub, where you just select it,
Yeah.
it'll create, what the button should be. This is on the page. And what we usually do with field parameters now is we'll group the slicers and the visual with a slight background color, so you can see these are all like related. So if I want to choose this particular metric, it's going to affect this visual. But the ability to do that, I mean, yes, personalized visuals may have a point, but to your point, that Venn diagram, I mean, I think it eats up 90% of what the personalized visuals could have done.
I agree. I think that's true. But where would you? Like? So where would you go with this though?
Drop.
Like, yeah, we're done here. This is it. Um, yeah, I like talking through like where was the span of what this is doing. But I mean, field parameters is also a visual only thing around. Field parameters are not getting pushed up to the back to the model. Meaning, what I mean by that is the field parameters are not something that you can programmatically add to a data model. It is a visual side feature set.
Well, let me ask this. I think this is actually, yeah, and I think that's a good point. Is there certain specific reports that you build with personalized visuals in mind?
No,
Okay.
I would very clearly. The
Or
only
the authors
again,
or the consumer? Yeah.
if I had that my druthers on this one, right? What I would want to do in personalized visuals is I'd like to have it. Okay, here's the chart that the author intended for you to use. I would like a second, like here, pick from these 3 visuals that I say is acceptable for this chart type. So it's either like, okay, stacked bar or stacked column, right? That's what I want to design it for. Again, limit your options. And then maybe table. And if I had, again, I think field parameters can also do this as well. But like if we're talking like, okay, let's make a table and then let you add
Yeah.
n number of extra columns to said table. Okay, now I'm in a place where, so one of the biggest gripes I have with tables right now is you don't get to pick and choose the columns you want. Does Personalized Visuals let you just add enough columns of the table that you want? And so now that becomes just a feature set. So it's too much, right? If I can say, you can only pick a visual of the table, add whatever field parameters you want from the model, and it just works. Great.
As you were talking, I realized the issue here. So I'm like, what would make this a lot easier rather than it being a pop-up, this should just be a pane on the right-hand side where you do the visuals. I'm like,
Of course, let's add
that's
another
just
pane to the page, like because there's not enough panes already in this
but
thing.
you know what that is? That's just developing a report.
Exactly right.
It's the same thing.
Yes.
So again, like I think I'm with you, Mike, where there's just too many options.
Yes.
So, which
And then when does, like, so, and here's how things are where my head goes with a lot of these things, right? I'd be interested to see the usage metrics on this compared to field parameters at this point in time, because I know Microsoft has like sensors on all the new features that come out. Like this would make sense. Like you would have, the product team is watching which new features are being released, and then how do they measure if it is a success or not, and watching which people implement things. And I'd be curious to see like, okay, what are some of the numbers around personalized visuals, they came out, and dare I say, this was a Gartner feature, right? Is this a differentiator between this and every other BI tool that's out there? Where does Tableau do this?
I
Does
mean,
Looker do
it
this?
could be, right? But at the
Right?
same time, it at the same time, this reminds me of a conversation that is repetitive no matter where I've ever worked.
Okay,
You will always have a body of people, and it's not just one,
it's true.
that says, "Well, great. I'm glad you gave me this report, but I want to build my own.
Sure,
I want to I like okay, you gave me this data in this way, but like that I this is my use case. I want to go do this thing."
sure.
But when the rubber hits the road, and when organizations have gone through the efforts to allow for people to build their own customized reports, which takes an immense amount of effort, just
Agreed.
FYI,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
The actual use case of that, business users aren't building reports. What happens? Third parties come in to build reports for the business because the business doesn't want to understand how to go build the reports because there's technical things that you
That's a real
have to do
that's a really good point.
to build these things. And it's like, no, they don't want to build their own reports.
No, they
They
don't.
want the data so that they can go muck around with it and do their own thing with it, and then build their own pivot chart. The problem with that though is like when you hit volumes of data, you can't do that. So what does that mean? The business user has to go learn something, but they don't want to learn something. So it's this repetitive catch 22 where it's like, it would be great. I want to build my own report. You guys aren't doing your job good enough, right? Like, okay, we'll go invest hundreds of millions of dollars into building, it's excessive, millions of dollars
Yeah.
in building performant back end infrastructures, models that are performant and aggregate in any way, shape you want to in the business. Here you go. Here's your customized solution to go build your own reports. Guarantee none of them are used.
Well,
Not
and
the way, not the
Yeah.
way you think they are.
well, and or
100%.
and or the interaction with, so how I just see you're describing this is a centralized BI team that is serving multiple departments, right? And they're kind of the team
Sure.
that's involved of making the
Yeah.
cubes and getting the data
Mhm.
there. You're proving that and so what happens is we're like, this is self-service BI. Here's your cube, Mr. Business Team. And they're like, I don't understand it. Can you just build me this? I just need a
Right.
tape. And it's always starts with
Or it's
I just need
so much
a,
more
Right.
complex though, right?
yeah,
Because like if you think about, even when you're building your own models and your own reports, some of the requests that come through,
mm,
my goodness, like the amount of tomfoolery we have to go through to build out the calculations,
yes,
and like it's not just model and measure,
yes,
it's okay, what type of visual. Now field parameters opens a whole different door of more us allowing the business user to select different things.
correct.
but but it's the same way with DAX, man. It's the same way with Power BI. It's so easy until it's not, right?
Yes, exactly.
And then when it's not, it doesn't work the way I need it to.
Yeah,
And what
easy
what does
to
the end user do? Well, this brand new reporting tool, the
doesn't
thing
work.
that I wanted because
Yeah,
I wanted to build my own stuff, I'm not willing to take the extra effort to learn all these things. You didn't provide me with something with an easy
Yeah,
button.
but we're getting to the point though. That conversation
But
is a
I'm
little.
saying, no,
Yeah.
but I'm
No,
saying maybe this is the answer of like, hey, you want to personalize your own thing? You don't have to understand everything. You have access to the model though, but
yeah,
here's your visuals. Sky's the limit. Go have fun.
yeah.
you're getting me riled up a little here because the point that you're the point that you're saying here, those people, what they want, nothing will solve. The only thing they want is if I could personalize a visual to tell me what steps I should do to make a sales call. That's what they want. Like at that point, they're to me, there's maybe it's a little bit niche, but like it's a little unsolvable here where they would rather than a data of a bar chart that they can choose is 5 steps how to do their job. They don't need data. Like those types of people they're gone to me.
I don't think so though. I think I would broaden the audience much more than that. I would think that there are people that want to build their own reports, but don't understand anything about how much it takes to go do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
and
So
and and
yeah.
they're going like systems and entire massive organizational shifts, like, I don't know, building Power BI, which Microsoft did, right, gives a platform for users to go build their own reports. And here we sit in that same platform for the last 6 7 years now, where it goes
Yeah.
deep.
Yeah.
And how many of those users that consume Power BI reports live in the deep end? That is what people ask for,
Yeah.
though, in customized settings, right? So you have platforms like Tableau, Click, Power BI, all of them that have existed prior to this. It's why organizations buy them, because it's a much simpler interface to get much further along than them going and
100%.
custom building everything else. But it still hasn't stemmed the tide of like, I want to build my own report.
Right.
Sure you do. But maybe this is a great use case of like, hey, you can build your own visualization without all the hard work. Here you go.
So is there ever really self-service BI?
That's a bigger
Sure.
question.
It's
Really?
called,
I mean,
sure. It's called Personalized
that's called
Visuals.
Excel.
It's hey, but maybe this solves that problem for everybody, right? Here, I built you a template.
Yes.
You can add 4 or 5 slicers above.
Yep.
I would recommend the slicer. But hey, if you want to choose a KPI instead, go ahead.
Yeah.
This is your ability to. I've already preset all visuals so that they match and they align, and you can go build your report.
So let me then ask,
Hmm.
maybe as a big I don't know where we're at with time.
That is a big check mark
I know.
from the Power BI side, because it's like,
Yeah.
there is a capability within here for us as a report author to generate a model,
Yeah.
to put objects on a page and say, go have fun.
Okay, so let me ask, what are we lacking in the tool, or what needs to be taken away for it to actually then play that purpose? And again, I
And I'm
agree
saying,
with you,
but this is
but
my whole point with the argument of like, well, it's not a feature that's usable. I think it's a feature that was demanded by groups of people, and if it's not used, it's that group of people that's not using it.
100%
I
agree on
no
this
no
one.
no 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 no. I disagree with that. I
If there
disagree
was a
with that.
demand, if there was a demand within my organization for me to go build templates so that people could build their own reports, I guarantee I'd be using this. I'd be all over this. That's all we'd be doing. Figuring out ways
I
in
don't
which
want to agree with you now. Wait,
we
wait.
could set up the layout of a particular page that's designed to be a KPI and visual, like, here's your KPIs, here's your visuals, go pick and choose what you want to from the model. You can customize and build this any way you want to. How many requests have I had of that? 0.
Goose egg.
Crap. I don't want to agree with you.
But hey, I will say, coming out of this conversation, maybe they just don't know it's there. So I'll tell you what, I'll come back in 3 months after I've like hammered it in my org all the time, saying, hey, if you guys want to like completely customized thing, we can probably do something like that.
Oh,
Here,
okay.
I've heard you
it'd
say
be
those
like
words
this. Here you
before.
go.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, no,
here's what I'd like to here's what I'd like to see from this, right? There's this concept of like, if we train on something, I like to know if it's actually being used.
Mm.
So there's a couple things I would like to observe as we build reports, and this is a good area of this where you would say, Seth would be like, hey, look, here's a new feature. We're gonna do customized visuals. Teach it to you. Have it. We're gonna stand on that stool or that soapbox for the next couple training sessions. And then we're going to watch the usage metrics internal to my organization. Which reports are actually becoming customized, or which reports are actually getting custom personalized bookmarks? If there were metrics around that for us, the report authors, we could then sit back and evaluate, okay, does my team actually use what we've said was a good idea or no? Or do we need to do more education as to how valuable this potentially could be?
Yeah, but that would be
Well,
hard
here-
to track because there's so much more that could be engaged with the personal bookmark.
Totally,
right?
totally agree. But I'm just
No.
saying, like, these are the things I would like to know, right? I don't want
I
to.
was just playing devil's
I
advocate.
guess
Yeah,
I know
well,
you
How
were.
valuable of a feature
this-
this is, actually.
No, and here's the thing. I think, unfortunately, I think I'm beginning to agree with you, but I will play. At least-
Unfortunately, you mean
Well,
Don't
because
fortunately?
do it. Don't do it.
No, but here, because I realize, I'm like, how often do I use personalized visuals? And I'm always in Power BI.
That's what I'm. I didn't even
Like,
half my.
but
I had literally
What
had
do you
a.
need them for?
like myself, and I know
Exactly.
the dang thing I
You
built
build
it.
your own visual.
Exactly.
The way you want
But
it.
no, but this is going to be my argument for this. This is where I'm going to push back. I truly believe the reason why personalized visuals are not used whether by the author or anyone else. I think it's the application of it. It's the UI of it. I think the demand for this, anyone who's using Power BI often, whether as a consumer or an author, can see a use case to
Hmm.
easily do it.
Yes.
But that's, I think, to me, it's not easy.
Well, I would say
It's not easy to find. It's not easy to
correct.
choose. And
It's
it
the
is
whole.
slow.
But I would say the same argument goes for like drill through. Same thing. It is a good feature. It makes sense, but it is so hard to discover and like just
Until
looking
you add a button.
until you add a button or until you're looking like I'm literally looking at a page right now and trying to figure out, okay, how would I have known? Like I had a report in my like that I built that is there. It's been there for
Yeah.
months. I use it every single day to manage my business. And doggone it, I went into desktop thinking I gotta turn this feature on. I should see how this report looks with this. It's been on for 3 months. I didn't even know it was there because
Sure.
the doggone little icon in the upper right hand corner, you don't even get to know it. Like the visuals on the page, there's nothing that tells you I'm personalizing it. You have to literally hover the right hand corner of the visual to then see the icon, and then you have to hover the icon to say, "Oh, look, in fact, I can personalize this doggone thing."
100%.
Like that's
A
too
hundred
it's too
percent.
hidden.
And this
I bet
is
it's already enabled for most of my reports.
It
right.
probably is.
Yeah.
Probably.
But this is
But then how would you know if anyone's even using it? Like you
This
don't
goes back,
know.
This goes back to like a simple request that I can't service, which is, if you're going to give me like this header that pops up above a visual, can I
Yes.
get something other than 3 dots?
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yes.
Or
Well-
like something that indicates that there's more value here or options that
Or-
somebody can choose. I'm
Right.
like, I'm sorry, I can't
And
do anything about that.
give me the so one of the things that's most requested on every single visual, can I export this? Why is there not a single icon for just exporting?
All right.
I
Yeah,
don't
load the
want to
server.
I don't want to
Yeah.
click. I don't want to
No,
click.
no, that's a good thing.
Like
I don't want to click
hover
the
up. I don't want to do anything but
Nothing.
export, right? Or
Export.
show that. So
Yes.
you've allowed me to like remove all of the other header things.
Yes.
Customize the headers.
Can I just have it like pop up
as
export?
just export data.
Or a text field?
Yeah.
Text field.
Or even
I don't want that. Are you kidding?
Text field with a button.
yeah, select the visual and then have a button highlighted that says
Right,
export data.
right.
Like you need it. Oh, that just drives me
No,
nuts.
but and this, like I said, to me,
Customize properties. Give it to me.
this is very much, even if there's not a demand for this, there would be if it was easier. It's one of those like I didn't know I needed it till I had it.
Correct.
And even if someone wanted it, like I love the idea of it, but even when I'm trying to personalize a visual, like one, it's all the options, it's convoluted, it's still this little text box. It doesn't, especially if you even if you have a normal size model, it's hard to navigate as a developer, right?
So let me
So-
I'm gonna add some fuel to the fodder on this one, or
Yeah.
fire, or whatever. What do you want to call it? And here we go. Gasoline. Here we
right?
go. Gasoline to the sucker. All right. So in Power BI embedded, okay, there is a playground where you can go look at your own reports and play with things inside the context of like PowerBI.com. So it's playground.powerbi.com. When you go there, in their showcases, they have this thing called showcases. These are like highlighted examples of what you can do with their API and cool things. One of those examples is create a quick visual. And in create a quick visual, it is all done in the application, where the application can say, pick the visual type you want, and you can programmatically say, which visuals are you going to allow the user to pick? An area chart, a bar chart, a line chart. So you click the bar chart,
Yeah, that's what you're
and
talking about.
then you go to, once you select the bar chart, it says, what do you want on the axis? And again, this is where the application, the example is, here, look, here's all the dimensions in your model. I'm going to let you pick from these couple dimensions of the model. Those will be highlighted in that drop-down menu. And to me, this is what I want it to be like. I want it to be like this. It lets you pick
It's
the
a
visual
story.
type. Yes. And then save that with the user. Fine. As a personalized bookmark, no problem. But give
Right.
me all the...
That would make more sense. That would also make more sense from a report author perspective.
100%.
right? Where you get a lot more use out of this.
Yes.
Going like, hey, I understand that you probably want to see this as a table. Or
Yeah.
another great way to see this, visual
Exactly.
is by this.
Yep.
So here's a couple options I want you to be able to select from because
Yes.
it still makes sense.
Yes.
And I know that users are always asking for this second. one,
That's another really good example. Like,
So
why not let
yeah,
me build...
which is all bookmark driven right now anyway.
Yeah,
right?
why not
the
let me-
only way to produce
Yes.
that result is by going, you know what? I'm going to add both of these visuals to the page. and you'll have
Exactly.
to select
Right.
by a bookmark.
Why can't
This is-
why can't I pre-configure those visuals and have them just from the pick down list? Hey, pick this,
I would
this, this,
agree
or
with that.
this.
I would-
Right.
I would
Way better.
I would use this a lot more if I could limit the use cases
Yes.
that they would be introduced to, because to Tommy's point way earlier in the beginning, like it's too broad.
Yes.
Like the minute you open up all those options, people get like freaked out.
Overwhelmed.
There's psychology behind this too, right? Like limit the options. Maybe I'm thinking of kid psychology because
No,
I have
you
them,
know,
right? Like
you-
where it's like don't ask your 2-year-old to pick from all of her clothes, right?
Yes.
Give them
Two or three
choices.
options. Yes, exactly.
they figured this out with
Same
video
thing with
games.
end users,
No,
right?
they
Yeah.
figured this out with video games years ago when it was like the RGBPs where you could type in anything. Like you find something, what do you want to do next? You're like, I don't know, like go left, go.
Yeah.
Remember those where you could type, or Super Mario?
Do you want to go left or right? Yes or no?
Yeah,
Right
right.
now, it's
But
like,
the other ones were literally like, what do you want to do? Like that's what some of the games would ask you, and you could type anything, but
Yep.
you didn't know what to do. Especially with this feature, you're dead on, Mike, where it's like, what visual do you want?
Yes.
What do you want, or what do you want to see? Okay,
Yes.
I want to see product category. How do you want to see it? And make it in a sense a step by step.
Yes.
So-
Bing, bing,
and-
bing, bing. Here you go.
Right.
Done. Add it to
And
the page.
I
Boom.
guarantee
Done.
you, people who didn't even know they wanted this would start using this.
Correct. I would agree.
Yeah. So,
Give
and
me semi-personal visualization.
Yes. Catered personal visuals.
Yeah.
catered, yeah.
Something like that.
No, what would the word? It would be
Uh,
refined or like
Yeah. Power custom visuals. You know.
power.
No,
power
no,
Had the word
personalized.
We have enough
power
power.
personalized. Just if you need to make it better, just add the word power to the front of it, and it's better.
You get a lot of money for it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I don't have any other comments. I think we've kind of exhausted this topic fairly well. We've done a good run around on the whole custom visuals or customizing personalized visuals inside your in your report. So what I'll also do is I will go make sure I have the link of that feature inside the comments in the description of the YouTube video. So go check it out for yourself. Go see how you would want to use it, and just check out some of your existing reports. Maybe you already have it turned on by default. You don't even know, and no one's using it. So maybe take some time, learn about the feature a little bit. I appreciate the discussion. You guys had some really good thoughts here around the different areas of like the surface area of security. How do we use it? How do we implement it? I think there's some. I hope Microsoft's listening. If I had a little, what's the knocking sound on the screen? Ding, 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 ding. Hey, Mr. Microsoft, I hope you pick up some of these features here, and maybe we can enhance some of these personalized visuals to make them a bit more usable for us to develop. So with that, we appreciate your time. You've spent just about a little under an hour with us listening to stuff around on the podcast. We appreciate you very much. We thank you very much for your listenership and your ear for this period of time. If you liked it, what really helps us out is let somebody else know you like the podcast, you like the discussion, you found some informative data points off of this, and just share it with somebody else on one of the social media platforms. In that, Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
Yeah, man. If you hear people, if you're like, hey, there's a podcast that actually yells about personalized visuals,
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't think that was
Oh, yeah.
possible. Share the word. So if you are listening live right now, because we're pre-recorded, make sure to subscribe online. All the podcasts are available on Apple and Spotify. All the 132 hours of content that we're probably yelling about irrelevant things. That's what we're doing here.
Totally.
If you are listening, join the conversation live.
We'd love to.
There's a great chat, good community, and like I said, what helps us out a ton, what you could do for us is share the word.
Yes, please. Awesome. Well, thank you all very much. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time.